Hey everybody, it's the Mad Master here. I'm doing another video, and this might be the last political video I do for a while. Um, I'm really burnt out, and more of that probably will come. Explanation of that in this video. So, for those who follow this channel somewhat or whatever, they know in 2016 I endorsed Bernie Sanders, and I've been really thinking about who I'm going to endorse for 2020, and I've got to say it's going to be Bernie Sanders again. Uh, As if that didn't fucking already surprise you. So, not surprise you. So I'm going to do an explanation of really, this is what happened to me a few years ago. There were people in my family who were for Bernie, or friends or whatever, back in 2015. And I had this apathy towards politics for many years. I think one of the things was I was really driven by conspiracy culture and these ideas, as explained in my other videos about Alex Jones and all that. So yeah, it's pretty ridiculous, but it's kind of quasi-libertarian, but with a lot of leftist tendencies. And I think deep in my core, I really still harbor a lot of those beliefs. I have a distrust of authority. I have a distrust somewhat of government, but it depends on what the intentions of the governmental authority are, of course. So there is a difference between what the intentions are and what particular things are about. So in 2015, I was kind of like, oh yeah, politics, blah blah blah. So I started watching a lot more. I was already watching some progressive channels, and I was really, I was kind of getting sick of these anti-SJWs, kind of going more far right. Like Amazing Atheist and TJ, slash TJ Kirk, the same guy. He never did that, and there were several that didn't do that, that were talking about these, culture war things. And they actually turned out to be pretty decent people as far as like being consistent. But I started to see like people in the manosphere that I used to follow a long time ago. All these people go to Trump, and I was just like, it was weird. But anyways, that's a side note. So I started, I've heard about Bernie Sanders since I used to hear him on Thom Hartmann's program back in the days of Air America. And I respected what he had to say. I was just like, well, they're all the same. They're all politicians. And that's probably true to some extent still, but I probably still believe in that. But nevertheless, I'm supporting Bernie again. I think what really happened is I've always been kind of fascinated by a lot of the politics in Europe, especially Northern Europe. And I just wonder, how they can, time after time, with some exceptions, of course, with some of their stuff, kind of outshine the U.S. as far as happiness, as far as, people being, having equality, people having just a healthier lifestyle. And that's not only because of government, but it always kind of was quizzical to me why, there was all this right-wing shit in America or whatever about all this stuff. And then you could just point out, regardless of, there's some, rhetoric about, some of these things wouldn't work for a population this size, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's just leave that aside. Just on a basic level, some of this stuff just shatters the narrative that's been in American politics for over 50, 60 years. And I think a lot of that's because of the Red Scare and the corporations gaining more and more power over the media and the propaganda. Like Reagan going against socialist healthcare, in the 60s. It was like part of, I don't know if it was GE or some corporation that sponsored that or some shit. So I realized all this. And by 2016, I supported Bernie Sanders because I knew that the Democrats are so corrupt. And I can't really handle it. People still, there's just got to be a change. I mean, regardless of if you believe in the climate change stuff or not, or future climate catastrophe, why take that chance? Why do we want to take the chance that shit hits the fan in the future? And why go that way? Why not have some change, just actual change instead of the status quo? I mean, Obama really disappointed me because he didn't go after the financial criminals in the 2008 crash. After that, there were a few people like Bernie Madoff went to jail because, as far as recent financial criminals, but just for the most part, it was just this systemic corruption that continues. And to me, Donald Trump is a symptom of two different, polarities. There's the actual American underclass that was distraught by neoliberalism, which is, look up neoliberalism if you don't know what it is. People get confused. I know people, especially people I probably know, don't know what it means. There was, disdain for that, and the elites that pushed neoliberalism, like Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, the DLC, it was called the Democratic Leadership Committee in the 1980s, who wanted to push more moderate democratic policies. This is how we got in this mess. So that shit's over, And let's say Bernie Sanders does become president. Do you think he's going to change everything overnight? Do you think it's going to be some kind of systemic revolution? Probably not. But if we can push more that way, it's better than having someone that just half the time votes with the Republicans, or half the time, compromises in the center right way. So that really got me thinking. I'm still supporting Bernie Sanders now. If Elizabeth Warren she's kind of been a little convoluted about some of her policies, I would vote for her probably. But anybody else, no. That's just the way it goes. I vote from my conscience. I don't vote out of fear. I don't vote out of fear of Trump. And that's a lot of people. There's a lot of people pushing that narrative, a lot of, interests that want to do that. So in my opinion, in my eyes, I think the best chance is Bernie Sanders right now. Now, nobody else has really caught my attention. Tulsi Gabbard I like for a couple minutes, but I don't know what's her deal nowadays. It's just ridiculous. But Bernie Sanders is actually, he's a rock. He's never compromised as far as his core beliefs go. And, I see it as a symbolic gesture if he did win towards, actually revising the American ideal. This corruption, this revising all this, against all the corruption and all the imperialism and all the, the destruction of the third world, the environment, and all that stuff. So that doesn't mean that I'm not a, hypocrite in some ways. Like I own an iPhone, and I know a lot of shit, is like, I mean, it's not something that's easily done, but I think it's a symbolic move if we can get someone like Bernie Sanders president. It doesn't mean that he will do a lot, but he would do more than some centrist who would probably compromise and be just a light, Republican light. Not as extreme as Trump, but as I said before in previous videos, there are some things symbolically about Trump that I like, that he talks about the, how, I mean, of course, a lot of it's kind of empty rhetoric, but he talks about, in a way, how neoliberalism has ruined the Rust Belt. And that's why I think a lot of people voted for him. So, I mean, I don't get people that want some kind of centrist to run against him. It's not going to, I mean, we tried that before. Why not try something new? That's my whole thing about Bernie Sanders and all these people. If I were if we were living in this some kind of like socialist, quote unquote socialist, like Soviet kind of place, I'd vote for someone that's more libertarian, because the fucking stagnation of something like that, I'd vote for more of a capitalist. But right now, the pendulum has just swung too far to predatory capitalism, and just, I mean, I'll give you an example. I go to these towns. I mean, like Rockford, Illinois, for example. It's all this urban decay, right? And all this it's just like nobody cares, right? It's like it's all. I think that's a victim. People are victims of capitalism because it's like it's all about themselves. It's all about the profit. It's not about the good of the people anymore. And I have a place for capitalism. I mean, I'd love to own a Testarossa and a castle. I mean, and I like material things to some extent. I mean, I'm not going to be a hypocrite, but we've just gone so far. And then these people talk about, oh, there's like Bill Gates is such a genius or something like that. Bill Gates stole his whole thing from someone that he didn't even hardly gave credit to, this guy that wrote DOS originally. These people, these billionaires, have the means to, they're not just some people that rise up by their bootstraps. That's a myth that I used to believe. I mean, to some extent, like Steve Jobs and like Steve Wozniak especially, were a little bit more original. Like people like that. There are people that are more original in some ways, but it's just like people have, and that's, I used to hate the lone genius myth because it just made me think, oh, well, that's just like, there's this thing called the lone genius myth. I would look it up on Google. And I used to hate it. I used to like, well, that's bullshit. There are people that are lone geniuses, and there are, right? But I think I understand it a lot more because it is one of those things that, there is a team. There are other people that get input. You could call it collectivist or whatever the fuck, But I don't know. It just bothers me that people are so blind to what's happening with the Democrats this time. They're making the same mistakes supporting people like Joe Biden and these people from the Buttigieg, who it's the old 90s Democrat all over again. We got to have something new. It's going to appeal to people if we have something new. And people talk about, oh, appeal to moderates. Well, what are you watching? What are you reading? Are you reading all the polls? Are you just watching MSDNC? I mean, it just really bothers me. So I'm supporting Bernie Sanders for president, and I have a bumper sticker on my car that even proclaims that. You can like that, or you can't. And I already said, I believe social democracy is the way to go. In America, we need to try some new things. If they don't work, then stop it. If Medicare for all doesn't work, which, with all the corruption of capitalism, I don't know, because I think they would try to find a way to profit from it, these fuckers. But, if Medicare for all doesn't work, if, having more of free college or free college doesn't work, then go back to the old way. Fine. Or go back to a different way, or go to a different way. If it doesn't work, but why not try it? Why do the same thing over and over again? And that's what really bothers me about centrist people, people that think centrists are the only ones that'll win, or that's the only thing that's good. It's just like, why? It's like 3 out of 4, or not 3 out of 4, 3 out of the 5 last elections they ran centrists, right? They ran Kerry, they ran Clinton, Hillary Clinton, that is, and they ran Al Gore. And Al Gore is, regardless of his environmental stuff, he is definitely a centrist. And Obama, in 2012, maybe he ran more of us as a centrist, but in 2008, there's a difference between rhetoric and like this flowery thing that's more centrist and actual policy, which is, he was more centrist, but his rhetoric was very populist and very somewhat progressive, even in 2012. So he's a master politician, you know. But that's just, it just bothers me that people, you know, won't just try to give something different a support. You know, I was a follower of Ron Paul for many years, you know, and I know that sounds like the opposite of someone like Bernie Sanders, and in many ways it is, but it's something different. You know, it's something. It's trying a different way, and that's really what bothers me. That people just are so blind to this thing. Well, if something's not working, and you know, going to these places, urban cave, like Baltimore or Detroit, you know, these places just, you know, and oh, a lot of them have Democrat mayors. Ugh. Yeah, what kind of Democrat do they have? They have a centrist, compromising fucking corporate hack, or do they have an actual like progressive? I don't know. You know, leave your comments. Tell me what kind of mayors. I doubt there any kind of mayor that has any kind of, you know, guts to stand up to shit. Obviously, we see that in Detroit. You know, so I think that to conclude, I will be voting for Bernie Sanders in the primaries. Hopefully, the general election he'll win to get there. If he doesn't, I will be very sad and disappointed, and I think it will be, you know, it's a dying country in many ways. I wouldn't say that maybe United States is a dying empire. I would say in many ways it is. I don't know if that means United States will decline to be no longer existent or there'll be total chaos and civil war, but it's declining. And part of the reason why it's declining is because people are so fucking ignorant. It's so fucking small-minded. You know, that's the reason why. So stop. Open your mind. Okay, that's all I got to say. Please subscribe. I'll be doing more videos probably in the next few weeks, I hope. I haven't done many lately, but I will be following up. And I know there's some new weirdness on YouTube, and I'll have to deal with that too. But I will see you later.